Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to today's weekend reflections on this Thursday, the 23rd of January 2025. I hope you're well wherever you are tuning into this from. And today I would like to share with you some wisdom from a great Islamic scholar, Ibn Khaldun, who lived about 625 years ago. He was about that, because he died in 1406. So he lived about 600 years ago. And he wrote the famous Muqaddimah. The Muqaddimah is initially intended to be an introduction to history, but actually, if you read it, it's like an introduction and a mini encyclopedia of the state of science and understanding at that time, a product of a real alim, of a real scholar. So I'm obviously not going to go through all this now, but I want to discuss something about timeless wisdom and the importance of experience, sharing that experience and also learning from those who have experience. So for this, I'm actually going to turn to 336 of this edition of the book, which is a translation by Franz Rosenthal. Originally, I think it was translated back in 1967, or no, even earlier than that. It's 1958. This abridged edition was originally published in 1967, and this particular one was published in 2005 by Princeton University Press. So this is what Ibn Khaldun wrote on this. He said, "One knows from philosophical works the statement that man is political by nature. The philosophers cite that statement in connection with establishing the existence of prophecy and other things. The adjective political refers to the town, polis, which they use as another word for human social organization. This polis is obviously Greek. You can find a lot of like metropolis today comes from this word. The statement means that a single human being cannot live by himself, and his existence can materialize only in association with his fellow men. Alone, he would be unable to have a complete existence and lead a complete life. By his very nature, he needs the cooperation of others to satisfy all his needs. Such cooperation requires, firstly, consultation, and then association, and the things that follow after it. Dealings with other people, when there is oneness of purpose, may lead to mutual affection, and when purposes differ, they may lead to strife and altercation. Thus, mutual dislike and mutual affection, friendship and hostility originate. This leads to war and peace among nations and tribes." So, I mean, we can be in 2025, we can be a little bit pedantic and pick up on the fact that this has either been written or translated where it says a single human being cannot live by himself and his existence. We can pick on this, but I mean, it's just the way it's written. Either, I mean, obviously, a single man, if there was only men or a man, then there'll be no kids, there'll be no people, there'll be no future generations. But that's not what Ibn Khaldun is referring to here. A single person cannot live by themselves, whether they are a man or a woman. I mean, to an extent you can, but you can't get everything that you need. Because even if you live by yourself, he's meaning literally by yourself, not like you live on your own, but then you go to the supermarket and buy your things, you go to your job and you work, because you're not by yourself. In modern language, we might say they're living by themselves, but they're not really by themselves because, somebody built the house for them. whether it was built before they lived in it or for them directly, but someone built that house. They had to either build or buy that house. Then, other people have to do servicing to the house. They need food, so there needs to be farmers. There needs to be people who bring that food to them one way or another. So you'd have farmers. Those farmers then send the food to factories, send the food to supermarkets, however that process works in their community, until eventually it gets to their house. And then they either have to cook it themselves or they have to get some cooked and prepared food. All of this requires the assistance of other people. In order to buy that food, in order to buy that house, they need to work, or they need to get an income stream or inherit wealth, one way or another. This also comes from other people. So whichever way you look at it, no one is an island. Every single one of us is depending upon our interaction, depending upon other people and our interactions with other people. And this is the point that Ibn Khaldun is highlighting here. And he says, dealing with other people, when there is a oneness of purpose, may lead to mutual affection. And when purposes differ, they may lead to strife and altercation. Thus, mutual dislike and mutual affection, friendship and hostility originate. And this leads to war and peace among the nations and tribes. Among human beings, this does not happen haphazardly, as is the case among stray animals. God enabled them to arrange for their activities under political aspects and according to philosophical norms. They lead human beings from the things from the things that are detrimental to them to those that are in their interest, and from evil to good. First, however, they must recognize the things that are evil and the detrimental effect of doing them from sound experience and current customs. So you see, it's through this process of interaction that we realize what things are beneficial for ourselves, for the community. If we work towards those things which are beneficial and away from those things which are detrimental, then things will progress. We will actually find improvement. We will benefit, our community benefit, our society benefits. If, on the other hand, we do things which are detrimental, then obviously the whole thing starts to fall apart. We will suffer, our community suffers, our society suffers. Now, those things which are beneficial tend to be defined by most people as good, and those things which are detrimental tend to be defined by people as evil. And we need to have a knowledge and an understanding of what those things are. If we don't have an understanding of that, we can actually get ourselves into a lot of problems. And Ibn Khaldun continues and says, and this is how they're distinguished from stray animals. The result of their ability to think shows itself in the fact that their actions are orderly and not likely to be detrimental. I mean, even with all the problems that we have in the world today, and things are far from perfect, but there's many things in the world that work, that we benefit from, that we use every single day. And if it was not for what Ibn Khaldun is discussing here, that would not be the case. And we wouldn't have communities, we wouldn't have society, we wouldn't have countries that we live in. And so Ibn Khaldun continues and says the concepts bringing this about are not completely divorced from sensory perception and do not require very deep study. All of them are obtained through experience and derived from it. There are particular concepts connected with the sensibilia. Their truth or falsehood soon comes out in events. From events, the student of these concepts can learn them. Each human being can learn as much of them as he is able to. He can pick up his knowledge with the help of experience among the events that occur in his dealings with his fellow men. Eventually, he will have what is necessary and must be done and must not be done. Fix this in his mind. By knowing this well, the appropriate habits of dealing with his fellow men will be obtained by him. So he's saying, of course, most of us, we learn this. We learn this during childhood. We learn this in our interactions with other children. We also learn it in our interactions with our parents, with teachers, with our grandparents, with our aunties and uncles and other elders within the community. Most people learn these things that way. And if we learn these things that way while we're in childhood, then that's very beneficial for us, because it sets us on a very firm foundation as to how we're going to interact with other people through the rest of our life. And hopefully that will lead us to our success in whatever we do. And so Ibn Khaldun continues and says, those who follow this procedure during their whole life become acquainted with every single person. Sorry, apologies. Those who follow this procedure during their whole life become acquainted with every single problem. Things that deal on experience require time. God made it easy for many human beings to obtain this social knowledge in a shorter time than the time required to obtain it through experience. If they were to follow the experience of their fathers, teachers, and elders, learn from them, and accept their instruction, people can thus dispense with lengthy and careful personal study of events and need not attempt to pick out concepts from them. But people who have no knowledge or tradition in this respect, or people who are not willing to learn and to follow others, need long and careful study in order to be educated in these things. So you see, by learning through our elders, by learning from their experience and their example, because think about it, you know, people who have been on this earth many years older than us, many years longer than us, they have not just age, they have experience. They've been through many things, they've done many things, they've learned many things, whether they've learned from books, whether they've learned from their teachers, whether they've learned from their parents or elders in other ways. But they have experience, they have knowledge, they have wisdom. I know there are always exceptions to this that maybe don't, but generally speaking, this is true of older people. So we should benefit from that learning. And if we benefit from that, then we can avoid many pitfalls in life ourselves. And this is why in traditional societies, you know, elders were often treated with more respect, more courteousness, more understanding. And we might not always agree with them on some things which are more, let's say, modern, things which have changed within society. They might not be as clued up with the latest things. But then again, I know some older people who are well and truly on the ball on these matters, and they really are far ahead of even some of the younger people. So don't underestimate older people, even with regard to modern technology. There are going to be those people who don't know how to use a phone or a computer, and there are going to be those older people that are better at it than you. But either way, we should deal with respect, because even those that might not be any good with technology, they may be far better and more experienced in another area of life, and we can benefit from learning that. Sometimes they can also know things which are dying crafts, things which are not practiced so much anymore, but maybe we can learn something, and that would actually benefit us. And maybe we could revive those things in a better way, in a more modern way. But if we don't learn from them, we will never know those things, and these knowledges and wisdoms will be lost. And Ibn Khaldun highlights that those people who do not learn from their elders in this way, then they have to still learn a lot of those things, but they have to learn it on their own and through study. And this is a much slower and more laborious process. It leads to much heartache and problems. And then he says that their manners and dealings with others will be badly planned and show defects. Their chances of making a living among their fellow men will be spoiled. This is the meaning of the famous saying, he who is not educated by his parents will be educated by time. That is, he who does not acquire the manners needed in dealing with human beings from his parents, which includes teachers and elders, and does not learn these things from them, has to fall back upon learning them with the help of nature from the events that happen in the course of time. Thus, time will teach and educate him because he needs that education, since by his very nature, he needs the cooperation of others. Such is the experiential intellect. It is obtained after the discernment of thing that leads to action, as we have explained. After these two intellects, there is the higher degree of speculative intellect. Many scholars have undertaken to explain it, and it is therefore not necessary to explain in this book. So I hope that's something that will give you food for thought and something to think about. We can certainly learn a lot from our elders, and let's give them the respect that they're due and benefit from them as much as we can while they are among us. And there is also a teaching of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he said that something along the lines of, if you respect an older person while you're younger, then this is how Allah will make sure that you will be also given that respect when you are older yourself. Because everything, we get what we receive, we get what we put out. So we reap what we sow. Whatever we do ourselves, whatever energies that we put out, however we treat others, and bearing in mind, our children are going to be learning from us. So if we show them a bad example, they are going to learn that from us. And then how do we expect them to treat us when we're older? So each one of us, when we get to a certain age, also we become a teacher ourselves. In whatever respect, whether that is as a teacher, or whether that is as a parent, or as an elder, or a sheikh, or in any of those roles, we become a teacher ourselves. And this is a responsibility. It is something that all of us have to take note of, and something that all of us have to think about in our interactions. How are we treating other people? How are we interacting with them? How are we behaving? Other people are going to see that, and they will either appreciate it and respect that, or not, depending upon how we react and how we behave. And it's just as important to respect younger people as it is for younger people to respect older people. And when we get this balance right, we live in a much better communities, a much better society. So please take note of this and take this on board. It's something that's beneficial for all of us. And even regardless of whatever our faith or background is, this same principle applies in all communities and all societies. I wish you all a very good weekend, and Juma Mubarak. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.